I got that. Yeah, heard them call me conscious. I ain't think about it honestly. My thoughts too deep to process, so I do this all unconsciously. Finally feeling God bless. Got 'em woke up dropping prophecy. Don't take it out of context. Just before, I swear they always sleep. Now they catch the message, yeah. Bet that every song is deep. It's levels in each concept. But I can't just never mono theme. I'm trying to lead this flock for the cause, not the following. People upon a partner, and I wonder why they drawn to me. Once upon a time, I thought to follow up a dream. Draw life about these lines, nothing twice about these schemes, and like thrice about these insights. What I write is like a blueprint for you to comprehend life. That's light, I reckon, make you shine. Never dim it down, even if you live surrounded where everybody vision clouded. Remember, staying down ain't quite as good as getting out. It said, remember, staying down ain't quite as, ay. If you believe, yeah. Many doubted it was hard for them to think. Somehow I'm finally getting out of that's it. Usually, yeah, they vision clouded, but as you can see by now, we finally getting out there, writing truth, spreading love. Tell me how you feel about it. Got this music from above, this how I know I'm getting out there, writing truth, spreading love. Tell me how you feel about it. Got this music from above, this how I.
That's good. He's still kind of in that world of one foot in the Western medical world, and also trying some other things too. So it's still all of that. But what can you do, man? What can you do? And long as he's in good spirits, and just keeping him evolving out in different things that he's doing to keep him strong and keep his mind sharp, and keep good things going in his body. That's that's really all I can focus on and control. And but I'm good, man. I'm good. How are you, brother? I know your dad has been going through some things too. How is that coming along, and how are you?
I'm good. But yeah, I mean, my dad's dealing with melanoma, and they've done radiation on they took out a brain tumor by cutting in. And then there was another one that was deeper in there, so they couldn't actually take it out. But they've been doing gamma radiation. It's called a gamma knife.
I've heard of it, yeah.
Yeah, so
grade 4 lasers and all of that kind of stuff. It acts as like a knife.
That he's dealing with, he's doing okay, but he did say that the gamma knife, the last time he did it, he said it was pretty painful. I think he's got to do it one more time, and then he's had 2 rounds of chemo now. He said the second one was kind of rough, but I mean, you know how we think. I've been giving him THC vapes, edibles, and I'm gonna get him CBD because he's dealing with nerve stuff too. So
yeah, same thing you've introduced, and for all if this does get posted, and for folks that are listening. G really, not that I hadn't already been aware of a lot of the medicinal properties and shrooms, and with the combination of that and 1-to-1 CBD, CBD oil with THC and it can do. But obviously when it's starting to hit close to home and you're looking for different sort of alternative measures to introduce to yourself or a loved one or a family member, you sort of take the next step in kind of digging into a lot of that. And G introduced me to those things, and I've just been doing a lot of reading just on the medicinal properties of shrooms, which obviously it's so funny about this stuff because when we think about Western medicine, how new and young it kind of is as compared to a lot of homeopathic, holistic, Chinese, and other alternative medicines that have been around here for ages, different practices. So it's kind of funny how we, a lot of folks will question a lot of those things or call it pseudoscience or pseudo whatever. And it, I understand where that branch is coming from to label or identify it. But, I always try to complement that research and someone else's experience with other people's experience. Like there are a lot of people who will get out here and tell you about their journey and their story. And you just hear of so many people that talk about how a lot of that has helped, you know, when when doctors have told them that there's really nothing else that can be done, or they decide for themselves that they just don't want to go down that road, you know? And so, you know, I want to thank you for sort of bringing that back to the forefront for me, and really, you know, allowing me to kind of turn back to that whole purpose in a sense, because, you know, you're trying something, but yet, like I said, when people around you are kind of still trying to bring you back in that realm that I don't really even want to associate with, but because there's so much attached to my dad personally that still aligns with that, I kind of have to. So it allowed me to really kind of
I
come
know
back to
exactly what
that.
you're talking about, because I want to just be like Dad.
Yes.
Buy 30 of these RSO syringes and eat, 240 milligram edibles every day. Take a lot of, I
Yeah.
mean, a lot. Don't get me wrong, it would be expensive, but you're dealing with an expensive issue. You know what I mean? And it's not any more expensive. If you didn't do chemo at all and didn't do all that other shit at all, it would balance out,
Right. Oh, big time. Yeah, I
And
know if you
really
have
good.
insurance, it covers most of it, but still, I mean, look at those bills in comparison.
Right.
And not only that, look at what you're paying for when you look at the long-term effects of some of this stuff, you know?
Health is true wealth, that's
Absolutely. I mean, dad's not dealing with neuropathy at 85 if we may approach what he had back then differently. And someone can say, hey, yeah, but maybe he wouldn't have got through. Who are you to say that? There are thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people who took their health into their own hands when they were told there is nothing else we can do for you, and have came out on the other end of that healthier than before. So I don't want to hear those things. You know, this is the beautiful thing about testimonies, is that you're hearing from the horse's mouth of someone who was the guinea pig or who was the alternative test, you know? So, you know, a lot of folks in that realm talk about Christianity and faith. Well, sometimes we need to apply that, you know, in other realms other than just, you know, talking about it. So I just say that I like to just, you know, anyway, my whole point in that was I'm glad that you kind of brought that back in perspective for me. And I was able to introduce it to my dad, and it had great effects. Now there's been a little, you know, as you know, trying to get that one-on-one is not simple. But I have plenty of everything else that we've talked about because of some other folks in your community, of course, in our community that was able to look out for me on that. So that's always a good thing. But I do want to kind of add that one-on-one. It is important for me to find that again, and we'll talk about that.
And I'll tell you real quickly, it takes doing a little bit of math, but you can always get THC edibles and then edibles, and then just take, 10 milligrams of the THC edible and 10 milligrams of the CBD edible, and it ends up basically being like
becoming a 101. I see. Yeah, that makes sense. Right.
But take it at the same time.
Right. Of course. No, I didn't even think about it like that, but that makes sense when you put it that way. But that's good. But you know, I will say this, G, your dad and my dad have his sons like us that try to keep it all balanced for him. You know what I mean? You know, and when you're adding love to that, you're adding good intention to that, and everything else that comes along with coming from a good place in what you're trying to do.
I like that you brought up faith a minute ago, because we've talked about the placebo effect before, and how faith and health are like pretty much intertwined, entangled.
Yeah.
Because the placebo effect is proven, like that's not even disputed. They don't talk about it much. They keep it kind of, they don't emphasize it per se, but they don't.
Well, I see where this is going to segue to, but yeah, no, you're right.
However, we talk about balance, and I do see we've had Human Vibration on. I've had her on a couple times. You were on with one of the conversations. I see her talking about like the vaccine is saline and it's all about the placebo slash nocebo effect.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel I disagree with that, first of all, to be clear. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna first, I also respect her totally. I'm not gonna like trash
Mm-hmm.
her or like, so I see some people like trying to like talk down on her for that. Just because you disagree with somebody on one specific issue doesn't mean you have to be disrespectful. And I would never say
So many more branches in the
in this
tree that has
conversation,
been. Yeah,
I wouldn't
exactly.
say
There's
directly to her face. And in fact, I
right.
messaged her about some of the things that I'm about to say. But, you know, I think that there's a relationship between drugs and the way that we see the world, which is
Mm-hmm.
going to affect how we believe, which is going to manipulate or change that placebo effect or how the placebo effect um, shows itself.
Manifest itself
Manifest,
on the
that's the
other
word I was
side.
looking
You're
for.
right. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, I mean, personally, like I've taken, well, first of all, one of the first drastic worldview changes in my life came from consuming cannabis.
Mm-hmm.
One of the next drastic ones was taking LSD for the first time
Mm-hmm.
and taking magic mushrooms. And so,
Mm-hmm.
like, and then even is if you're aware, like you can even take Xanax or Percocet or
Mm-hmm.
Adderall, and from a certain mindset, you can see how these drugs manipulate people's worldviews and the way that they see
Mm-hmm.
the world. And that is going to affect the way that the placebo effect within their own belief system manifests in their body, in their mind, in their spirit. And so I don't think that these myocarditis, whatever the fucking heart word is, all these heart attacks. I don't think that can come from a needle injury. Like our body is strong enough that, I mean, yeah, you might get a minor reaction, biological
Mm-hmm.
reaction from a needle injury from a saline injection, but I don't think saline injection alone is enough to cause the reactions that are being
Mm-hmm.
caused. And like I said,
Mm-hmm.
I brought this up with human vibration directly, and I have to say I think she was a little just too dismissive of like VAERS reports. It's like that's not, I understand anything can be manipulated, I understand that,
Mm-hmm.
I understand how she
Mm-hmm.
sees the world, so I'm
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
not disrespectful of that, but
Mm-hmm.
what you say, I like to listen to regular people's stories. And
Mm-hmm.
the fifth agreement, I always go back to the Toltec. The fifth
Of
agreement
course.
is be skeptical, which human
Mm-hmm.
vibration is the ultimate master of being skeptical. But
Mm-hmm.
the second half of the fifth agreement is but learn to listen. And we do need to
Mm-hmm.
be listening to people. We need to be listening to the indigenous people that were poisoned by smallpox blankets.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And that's
Mm-hmm.
not much
Bring up a good
different.
point there.
That's a pretty direct analogy to the
Mm-hmm.
vaccine thing that's going on today. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think there is something in these injections that are manipulating people's the way that they believe and the way that they see the world.
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh, no, that's a good point to piggyback off of that, G, because I knew you were going to touch on the human vibration point. And you know, I have mad love and respect for human vibration. I mean, my God, the work she's done with opening our eyes up
totally
to a
agree
lot
with
of
her
the
on
false.
Gordon Ramsay and
Oh man, so much, so much. But
Maxwell
what I was
a
getting
real person, but this one I disagree.
exactly, and that's good, and that's healthy, and that's okay. And what I will say to that is, remember too now, part of the master part of the mass confusion, illusion, different branches on a tree that lead you down different directions. You could be going down the wrong direction here, this direction. You have to relearn something there because if you're open-minded enough, you can back out of that direction because you're like, oh, I thought I was leaning that way, but new information has made me change my mind and go this way now. We have to remember, even with what you're saying, with what human vibration, is saying and believes, and because even I was the main one too. I got to a point where I was really down the road of placebo, and then things continued and started to happen as we see certain trends and numbers and data that points toward things that we hadn't really seen prior to 2020 start to happen in healthy young people. And it kind of took me away from that as well.
To be skeptical of data, and I think it's okay to be skeptical of evidence, but
Absolutely.
You still need to listen to everyone and put everything together as a whole, and not just listen to the people that agree with you.
Absolutely. And my point in saying that, when you said that, not only is that healthy and okay to do, and people need to take note of that, this is what this platform and dialogue is here to do, is to have healthy conversations and kind of vet through these different ideas. Because if you're on this side of the fence, we all have one mission. We're all trying to get to the truth in some way, form, or fashion. So it's okay that I'm wrong. I don't give a damn if it's still getting me closer to, and that's how we need to look at it. But my point in saying all of that is to say, we also have to remember one of, of course, I know Orwell talked about this, but many other philosophers have talked about this too. It's like, hey, part of this game in the Matrix that they like to play with us is to have confusion and not really being sure of what you may feel or believe yourself, because there's just so much to it, right? I mean, look at how many directions we have gone since 2020 on just trying to understand why and how and for the really religious people, they'll come back and they'll say, hey, you don't have to have all of that, just trust in it, leave it to him and trust in it. Listen, I respect that to an extent, but my point is that no, we do need to ask questions and talk about things as a community, and that's okay and that's healthy. And I'm sure, since everybody want to have different gods and their God is right, well, my God told me that it's okay to do that. So how about that? But my point is, G, is that do you see though, like, someone on one side is so sure of himself, someone on the other side is so sure of himself. I did a tweet today on my sports account, now my third eye account, and I don't usually bring this stuff over here into that side of things. I have a reason for why I don't do that. But today I really couldn't help but say, hey, this issue is not because somebody said something about how dare you try to politicize this. See, that's your problem right there. Nobody's politicizing anything, because we're asking a healthy, fair question about what is going on that young, healthy adults, not just here in this country, around the world, because this is happening to soccer players and many other people, where they are just players. Yeah, where they're just And I think my main question to everyone here is, if this was not a phenomenon, the issue would lead back to something different. There would be a different prognosis each time. Every single one of these situations all come back to cardiac situations. We have to seriously, and this is kind of how I was thinking and looking at it in 2020, G. When I first was like, oh, there's no way everyone's going to fall for this. And then I realized they did. So here we are again 3 years later now, excuse me. I mean, good Lord, the upside down has had us all. I don't even know what year it is. So here we are now 3 years later. And now my thing is like, wait. Does nobody see what seems to be similar in all of these things? I mean, there's a lot of differences and nuances in everything, of course, but there's one thing that is similar in all of these cases. Heart attack, heart issues, cardiac arrests, cardiac issues.
Myocarditis.
Myocarditis.
I never even heard of that until this.
Is nobody, we're talking about young, healthy, and I know, and G, I'm telling you, just let me get one thing off, and I'm done with that. With this segment, not with this segment, but with what I'm saying.
Your passion is kind of
watch what comes next after this. I'm predicting it right here. Now, because you know they got an answer for everything. So now people are going to start wondering, and they're going to start looking at the data because they read all the data. They see what everyone's talking about on the social media. They know what people are starting to. And as soon as we start to get close, you know what happened? We're going to move the goalposts a little bit. What's coming now is, well, people are asking too many questions about this cardiac stuff. We got to have an answer for what's happening with hearts all of a sudden. Because for some reason, 2 years ago, when all the conspiracy folks were talking about and pointing toward cardiac things coming from a lot of this stuff, it was happening then too, but the long-term prognosis of a lot of this stuff happening with weakening in the heart valves, cardiac issues, this, that, and the third. So now that this is now a conversation, you know what's happening. You know what's coming next. No, we have to divert from that. There has to be an answer for that. There has to be an answer for what that is. And it's probably going to come back to airborneness. COVID actually is settling in people. And this is a thing that's happening for it's so clear that they're about to have an answer for this. And that answer is going to lead back to what allows one side to say, see, I told you, see, it's that. And the other side's going to be like, no, see. And this is how the cycle continues into the next election.
I'm not listening.
Into the next shooting. Into the next world stage event. And there are so many of us who still just don't see the script. You know?
I get what you're saying, but I also want to caution that just that can be divisive. Just that they don't,
of course,
but it's like I feel like we do need to hold compassion for like the people that are just totally lost at this point.
Of course. But that's that. And I want to preference this by saying prayers to the young man. And as I said on my Twitter, to the many others that are dealing with things. Yeah. Hamlin. What's the young man's first name? I don't want to. I'm doing this off my phone right now. I don't have my computer pulled up. I mean, no disrespect at all. I've heard the name all day too, but I
haven't watched the NFL nearly as much this year after our.
No, I know. Oh, I know you haven't. I know you haven't. And I am, and I've admitted to it. I've said it's a vice that I will admit to. And I am openly,
even though I don't even watch the games, I've been betting more because I feel like, this NFL needs this team to win this game. I'm gonna go ahead. Like I took the Packers against the Dolphins the other week.
Oh, and the Packers against the Vikings was so easy to call. I can't even give LT credit for that. He throwing it up in my face about. I could have called that based off of Gematria alone. See, and here's the other thing. This is what's so funny about this stuff too. Because every time something happens, the first thing I want to do is go look at Gematria news. Because no matter how far I go, in these different directions, it always brings me back to their numerology system in Gematria. And it's because it's clear as day that it's still heavily used.
I'm still a little skeptical on that, but I was actually thinking about what you're talking about a little bit earlier today. And I feel like the more you see all of the coincidences, the more it becomes like, okay, there's at least something to this, even if not every single one is truly planned and all that. The
main picture that is circling the world of this event, when all the players were kneeling around and taking a knee and praying for the young man, there was one player that was standing up. There was one.
Too.
I'm just saying.
I am skeptical about that. I'm skeptical about both sides. I'm skeptical.
Of course.
And also, sometimes the conspiracy stuff, the gematria, this is the balance.
But how can you answer, as we always say? How can you answer? How can you answer some of these coincidences?
You're right. It does seem to be like there's a lot, but at the same time, when you look at that situation as an isolated event, It could have just been that happened to be the one guy that was standing. I mean,
yeah, like I like to say to that stuff. Like I like to say to that stuff.
I
It's just
followed these
it's
accounts
a
too.
hell of a like I always say to that
I
stuff.
followed
Well,
these.
it's a
You're
hell of a
right.
coincidence.
You're right, but
And that's only one. Obviously, there was about 37 of them, but I'm only pointing one because I think that was just two. Sometimes it's you know how they operate in plain sight. So I'd like to pick out the in plain sight things, but there are plenty that aren't in plain sight that are still like, just coincidental. I'm not taking away from anything that happened to the young man at all. It's not about that, but we have to stop acting as if other conversations cannot be had about things. That's
I agree with
that
that. I agree with that.
that's
No, I'm
it.
here to listen. I'm here to listen. I am skeptical of
Mm-hmm.
the Gematria stuff. I think that's a little heavy into the it's all fit. So, all right. So here's my thing. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Let me just like entertain you or go along with the every single thing in this matrix is fixed, and that makes us a part of it if that's the case, first of all.
Well, yeah.
And second of all, even Don Miguel, I don't want to say, I don't want to be wrong, but if I think it's the very last sentence of his most popular book, The Four Agreements, and I don't want to say this is the exact quote, but the gist of it is, we may not be able to control the destiny of humanity, but we do have a choice, and that is to enjoy our destiny or to resist it. And so, okay, let's say this is all a coded matrix. I think he doesn't say any more than that. He leaves it at that. But
Mm-hmm.
I think to expand on that, once you make the choice to enjoy the ride rather than to resist the ride or to try to take control for yourself in an egotistical way or a arrogant type of way,
Mm-hmm.
thinking that you actually have the power to control destiny of humanity or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and letting that go and just enjoying the ride and showing love to all of humanity, even the ones who disagree with you the most. I feel that choice changes the destiny. Like, even though you've let go of actually trying to change the destiny, that alone actually does change it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But that's the mystery, is because you have to let go in order for you to align with the flow of life itself and to be able to genuinely enjoy it. First, you make the choice to enjoy it, but once you're like have made that choice and you're locked into that choice, and even when you feel down, you come back to, okay, even if I have no control over the physical world and the external events that happen in my life, I can control my reaction to it. I'm not always the actor. I can't always control the action, but this matrix is set up in an action reaction chain.
Mm-hmm.
And no matter what, no matter how little control I have over the actions that happen to me, I do
Mm-hmm.
have control over my reaction. And that reaction is going to be the action to somebody else's reaction. And it's a constant dynamic change that's taking place in this action reaction, because your reaction to one action is the action to another reaction. And so if you can control your reactions,
Cause and effect is are you saying that?
but you're controlling your life by letting go of trying to control the action that preceded your reaction. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, of course. I do.
That's the
I
yin.
do.
That's the
I
yin.
do. The funny thing about that though is if we're going to sit here and have
Well, okay, the reason I bring that up is because the reason I think I'm skeptical and maybe resist like diving headfirst into all the gematria stuff and all that is because a lot of it is just so, the vibes are not where I'm at. The vibes are
right.
elites have control of us and blah blah blah. Fuck all that.
Well, I don't think some people look at it that way. It's not about looking at it like the elites have control of us. It's about it's trying to understand what it is that you're seeing. These psyops. Like, why? I don't think that there's anything wrong with us with people ascending to a level in which that they can be aware of the magic tricks. I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. You have to be somewhat aware of the energy harvesting that is going on.
Follow these accounts if I didn't totally agree with what you're saying.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Now, there's always going to be people in these
skepticism.
Yeah,
mainstream. You need to have a healthy dose of skepticism toward this stuff as well.
Yes, and gee, there's always going to be people in every lane that is,
You should listen to both sides, all sides.
Yeah. Well, not only
sides really at this point. I think everybody's got different stances on all sorts of different issues.
Right. And there's one thing that I do feel that I heavily agree with, is that I think a lot of the operation does work off of that system, though. I mean, numerology, and I think it works off of that. And my thing is, there's always going to be people in these fields who are maybe a little extra about stuff, and they may consume themselves with it. I remember, what's our boy Chris? Even Chris said he used to be really consumed in like all of the conspiracies and blase, and used to get. I need to check on what he's been up to, actually, because I know he stopped the pod. That was becoming a good pop. I really don't know what he's doing right now. I need to look into him and see what he's up to. But
I think he's focused on
anyway. I'm just saying.
Community.
Yeah, but I'm just saying, like, there's always going to be people in there who may, like with anything, drink too much. I mean, there's going to be somebody who drinks a little bit of alcohol and they're good, and there's always going to be somebody who drinks too much alcohol and they're effed up. So it's like, I know what you're saying. It's not about running around thinking that just to at least control you and everything. I mean, but you do need to understand this control system, because we could sit here and say all day that we're.
I see what you're saying, and I agree. But I just clarify what I was saying before. It's not always even necessarily like elites are controlling us. It's not necessarily that energy that's off-putting. It's also the energy of, I'm smarter than you because I understand all of this. And that energy is off-putting as well. And there's a lot of that in the Gematria community.
I mean, there's that in higher education. There's that everywhere. Construction.
No, I get it. I get that. I understand what your point is. And
but you're damn right.
I still follow these accounts. I still check it out.
Yeah.
But I'm making my
but you're damn right about like
I'm more about tuning into the vibe. Like
right.
Like Ab-Soul's new song, Positive Vibes Only. You know what I'm saying? Like
you're right.
There is something to Gematria. I mean, shit, Ab-Soul will probably be the first one to tell you, of course there's something to Gematria.
But even Ab said on this album he had to take a step back.
Yeah.
I know.
Align with the vibes a little bit. And we were not all geniuses at every point in our life, Everybody.
Oh, of course not.
It's like, let's chill a little bit with the sheeple and the. I'm done with all that. Shit. I'm with Solo.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm walking with Solo's new album, and I like the vibe. And we don't, we can be aware without always talking down to people that might not get things the way that we get them. We should talk about it in a way that makes them want to get it. You know what I mean? I think it's it's just tweaking the message a little bit. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I know. I do hear you. But that's also why that's why there's yes, I agree with that. I try to remember that sometimes. Sometimes it's hard, but I know. You see it, you hear things, you see things, and you try. And I tried, when I went silent for almost a year and I wasn't doing pods and all that. I tried. I said, you know what? I'm getting too invested in this. I'm done. Whatever. Don't care. For real.
So
and I tried. I am still trying. I'm trying to just focus on the things that I can control and take care of, and my businesses and projects and blase. So I mean, but that's the thing. It was kind of like before 2020. I was done with all that too. I'm good. I'm chilling. Let everybody be mad about Trump, whatever. And then 2020 comes. It's these polarizing events that you get wrapped up in, because if you're even if you have a fingernail plugged into the matrix, you're going to somehow become a part of whatever the new thing to become a part of is, because it's so polarizing, or it's so,
That's why I've been keeping two mantras in my mind, because exactly what you're saying is like, one of the mantras for me is only perfection exists. And enjoy the ride. Exactly what we were just talking about. It's like,
yeah,
there's some things maybe that we don't control, but we can always
for sure
reaction to the things that we can't control. And that's perfect enough for me. So I kind of
put my little smirk on and keep it moving.
Yeah, sometimes
and the young, and I just want to throw in here, the young man's name is Damar Hamlin. And I knew that. Yeah, I knew that. My bad. But and I hope he like anybody that's going through anything, I hope you make it out. And I hope and I hope I just hope that whatever, we can't control everything, but I just hope that more light is shed on exactly what's happening right now. I don't care what it is that's happening or what you think it is happening. My point is that whatever is seeming to happen, I just hope that there's some light shed on it, and I just hope that there's some peace and comfort brought with these families who are losing people. There are people in this county that I live in who are just losing young people. And I just, I'm just saying, I just hope that there's some peace and comfort, brought to people at some point. Only time heals anything like that. But
I think it's going to be a while. We're still.
Oh, absolutely, G. I know. I'm just trying to find ways to not be so dark and gloomy here.
I agree.
That's really what I trust me. Sometimes I'm just trying to find ways to not, like you said, not be so, like I said, I do try. I really do. I try.
I have compassion for all sides, because first of all, we're in such a chaotic time and
confusing time for a lot of people as well.
And so regardless of, I totally empathize with the people that are into the, the occult controls everything, and that the super conspiracy people, like, I get why you feel that way. It's a lot of fucked up shit going on out here. It's only natural to kind of come to a conclusion that there's, shadow governments and deep state, a thing. I mean, of course, a lot of this stuff is true. But we can always control our reaction, and we can always control the way that we talk about some of these things. We can talk about it in a adult way, Anyway, so yeah, man, one last discussion topic that I wanted to cover. It's probably not going to be quick because it's a pretty big topic, but like I said, I've been on this before we get into that, one quick aside, I gave Absol his flowers when we did that marathon episode, and I went through like my top musicians. But even then, even when we did that podcast, it had been like 5 years since he had dropped his last album. So his new album, Herbert, dropped December 16th. And I just want to say it's a beautiful album. Thank you, Ab.
Thank you, Ab.
I never hear this, but I just want to put that energy out there. I fuck with Ab so hard. James can attest. One of the reasons I fuck with him so hard is I was the first one that caught on to him. He's pretty much the only artist I can say that about. Like every other artist I got turned on to by somebody else that I know somehow, whether than just playing the music and being like, who is this? Or then telling me about him. But Ab was the one that I found from just this random rap blog I used to follow called Relevant Mindset. And that was back early 2011, I feel like, when he dropped Long Term Reality. And it's just been awesome, man. I've been a Soul fan since then. Probably one of the first Soul fans on the East Coast, for real. Like, no bullshit. I was probably one of the first Soul fans east of the Mississippi, and definitely probably in Virginia. But the reason I even bring him up again is because I've been watching a lot of the podcasts that he did in the lead up to the album, and a lot of the like media promo stuff that he was doing.
I love when they do that.
And
get to hear from him.
The guys, I think it was Rap Radar, one of the guys on there asked him, like, what conspiracy can you say for sure that you do believe in? And he said, that's easy, God.
And he said what?
He said, that's easy, God. And I was like, that's such a perfect answer. That's such a perfect answer to me for so many reasons. For so many reasons. But I just want to just make that the discussion point that I want to cover, not only right now. I want to talk about it, me and you. But I'm also going to make this the central point to the podcast moving forward. I've been thinking about this a lot lately. And I think everything we talk about can fall under the umbrella of God. And God is just a word. It's just a symbol that represents many different things to different people. And so if we want to talk about worldview, which is something that I'm ultimately trying to get at, I don't think we can talk about worldview without having the God discussion. And I think the God discussion is one that can be had by anybody. Worldview is a little academic, but when you start just talking about God, atheists can talk about God. Non-religious people can talk about their conception or perception of God. Science people can talk about whatever their God is. You know,
the folks on the back of the dollar can talk about their God.
You know, whatever it may be. You know, and then that's just the non-religious stuff that I just named. Then you got all the actual religious conceptions and perceptions of God. And so I just wanted to ask you, how do you define God? First, do you believe in God? And I think I know the answer to that because I know you well enough. I think the answer is yes. But to take that answer, and I shouldn't even assume that, but just assuming that that's your answer, how do you define God? What is your conception of God? I mean, these are questions that I think we should be having with each other, and that's what I'm going to start doing on the pod. I feel like it gets right at the heart of what I've always wanted to do with the pod, and it took me 52 episodes to really just be like, just take the arrow and shoot it right at the heart. Let's just talk about God. And because all of these other things that I like to talk about, indigenous culture versus civilized culture, spirituality, the nature of reality, rendering, transhumanism, technology, AI, social media, money, crypto, gift economy, UBI, marriage, the institution of marriage, politics, religion, health, faith, placebo, plant medicine, psychology, ego, all of this.
Amazing topics. Amazing topics.
Falls under God. All of it falls under God. So I think we can center all of our conversations from this point forward around God. And then at least, you know, like in your case, for instance, you're probably going to be on the podcast a lot more, but we can just take this conversation, because this is a never ending conversation for real. Like, we could take this topic and go forever. So the next time you're on, we'll just pick up right wherever we leave off today, because it's so much that falls under this topic, man. But anyways, I've talked enough. I just wanted to lay out why I'm asking you this question, and maybe to give you time to think about it. How do you define God? What is your God? You even mentioned it a little bit earlier about how your God said it was okay for you to question things. My God would agree with that 1,000% and would say it's even okay to question him, and that it's natural, and it's not even necessarily a him. I mean, a him is my
exact. Oh, and did one of our favorite artists, Ab, not allow us to think about it from that perspective too? Yeah, could be a woman, could be an entity that we don't, a deity that we can't even.
It's the ultimate.
Yeah, who knows? Alien. I mean, who knows? And see,
Right.
and that's kind of how I look at it at this
Words,
point.
for sure. But I think at
And
the
and
same
and
time, that's the yin yang again, because even though I feel that God is beyond words, I also feel it's very important for people to talk and discuss how they perceive or see or conceive God or the ultimate power in this reality. However, see, the thing is, like an atheist, if I was having this conversation with an atheist, my argument to an atheist is like, okay, you don't believe in God, but that's because you define God in such and such way. But if you define God the way I define God, which is reality itself that we all exist in,
Mhm.
the fact that you're alive, the fact that that atheist is having a conversation with me, the fact that we are both having that experience is proof of God to me, because that's the reality is we're existing within what I call God. And God is just a symbol to me that represents what is real.
Yeah.
At the very least, the force or the mysterious thing that created everything that is real.
Yeah. I can start there, G. I mean, that's pretty much what it is for me. For me, it's not pretending like so many do. Let me not do that. It's not pretending that that we just have all the answers because something was written in a book or given to us or told to us. It's everything and more of what you just said. It's when I was sitting on the phone with Kay and my ability to even think something, whatever that energy, whatever that force, whatever that feeling, whatever that vibe is, that I was able to think for allowing me to be a critical thinker and to question things and to think for myself. That is God. It is the ability to talk. I grew up I have an older sister, but I grew up, just really me and my dad in a very small town in the woods. I mean, I grew up talking to myself, me talking to myself and figuring things out and asking questions to the sky and talking to my imaginary friends and like feeling things because I was able to really like talk through them and talk them out. Some people would call that whatever label they want to give this shit, crazy, or you're a child that has to do this and do that, and they try to define it, come up with labels, all of that crap. Fine, cool. That's God to me. The ability to want to reach or research what I believe to be something that the universe or God wanted me to know or understand that could help my dad or could help me or could help health or could help someone else is God. Me thinking that the universe gives me signs and things is God. The sky being blue and it not making any sense to me is God. You know what I'm saying? Like these things to me are God. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I get it. There's books there's books that have been written by figures and characters that tell things, and I understand the story about that, the religious story about it all, and that's fine. But God is way too complex for it to just be that. Now I'm not getting into the whole morality of things, and I'm not getting into guides and things that you could pull from to help you do that. That's fine. But my point is that there are good people that I'm sure have carried out whatever their God has put in their heart to carry out that may not even pay attention to any of the religion stuff, that are still of a good ilk, of a good person, of a good energy, of a good spirit, of a good mind. And it has nothing to do with defining them of being godly or godlike, because they may not go to church or because they may not believe the same God you believe in. And that's my other thing. Like, why? Like, okay, so whose God is correct about? See, all of that. That is God to me. The fact that someone could sit in the middle of a conversation between two people arguing about the differences of something, yet they both quote unquote believe in God, is God to me, because it's like I'm able to sit here and be like this to that. And you guys are able to sit there and be like that to that. Do you see what I'm saying? It's like all of that is God to me, because it is so complex. It is so convoluted. It is so above what we're able to understand that it is God. That's God to me.
And then there's the other side of it, though. There's the other side of that where it's so simple.
Oh, yeah. Well, I haven't gotten there yet. Exactly. So that's the thing. It's like when you strip all of that away, when you take away the computers and you take away the books and you take away the information and you take away, when you take it all away and you just get on your knees and you put your hands in the dirt or the sand or the ground and you breathe the air and you look into the sky and you see a sun that you don't even understand how that's there. I know what science tells us. That's another story. My point is that all of that is God to me. You know, we can make it very complex and convoluted in 1,000 pages with 1,000 books and try to decipher what they're trying to say. Or we can make it simple as just putting my toes in the salt water of the ocean and saying, wow, like something made this, something, this is here somehow. This exists. Yes, this exists. Like, I don't care about your explanations and about your complex, convoluted
stories.
I don't. It's good and it's great, and I get it that some people need it, and that's fine and that's good. For me, it's the ability to make the decision between right and wrong. It's the ability to even feel what you feel is right or wrong. Who are you to say what? For me, right or you see what I'm saying? It's like that is God. Well, like,
I say a few. I mean, yes. First of all,
because he still gives you choice.
The sentiment,
it still gives you whatever.
In sentiment, I 100% agree with you with what the message that you're ultimately getting at. I 100% agree with you. Some things that I would nitpick.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. First of all, like the Toltecs say that, or I don't want to say the Toltecs because this one is not necessarily the Toltecs. This one's Don Miguel himself.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that the real name of God is love.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is a more accurate word. Again, at the end of the day, it's still just a symbol, but it's a symbol that vibrates at a frequency that seems more in alignment with what is, like what you're talking about, what exists, right?
Mm-hmm.
Could it exist if it was anything but love? Because love is a creative force versus hate, which would do nothing but destroy itself. If that hate could not create a universe at all, it's only going to eat at it.
Eat and burn and be dark and gloomy and fiery and whatever else. I know exactly what you mean.
But even that force could be used for good if you're burning, doing a controlled burn to make an area,
of course.
There are ways to use these forces that can also be used for bad and for evil or destruction.
Absolutely.
Those same exact forces can be used in alignment with love. And there's a reason why forces exist. So I don't want to even talk negative about,
about those things. No, you're right.
For example,
you're right.
The power of lightning or whatever. Yeah, they can be destructive, but they can also be cultivate the most amazing, perfect harmony and growth and perfection and beauty that we could ever imagine. So the reason I say all of this is because I feel like all of that could just be so simple if we were to just stop believing everything we've learned, because we're born as love. We are love, and there's nothing to learn. We don't have to learn how to love. We have to unlearn how to hate.
You just touched on something that I said in one of our pods a while ago that I understand can be a very controversial topic, especially in my community. But this thing with history, it's like sometimes I just wonder, like, are we a little, like unlearning some things? And maybe I understand the sentiment of we must understand where we come from to be better at it or something like that. I guess I kind of get that, but I do know also, to kind of piggybacking off of what you just said, you know, you have to, what good is it doing us continuing to relive and reinforce trauma or hate or anything that is not of positive ilk, and pretend like it's not going to breed at least a small percentage of those that desire to live within darkness, that can manifest it back again, especially if they have power, or what we consider here to be power and levels to power, and you're right though. I mean, that's kind of going back to what I said a while back. I mean, my thing about history and sometimes some of the stuff that we continue to just hand down generation through generation, and we wonder why it's still here. Well, okay, it's still here because we're continuing to manifest it in some way, form, or fashion. I don't know what the perfect balance is to take away some of it or not do it, or what's right and wrong. And I'm not here to say that or judge that or be the missionary in that. But my point is that it just brings up a good kind of compliment to what you just said there about unlearning some of that.
Because at the end of the day, it's all just a story. Like even
all of it is.
Well, James, like even if we grant that the story is true, let's just give them the benefit of the doubt for a second. Let's say that their version of the story is true, their version of history or whatever is true. Let's just, even though I think that it's full of lies, just to be
yeah. So but we're giving it the benefit of the doubt. Yes.
For the sake of this argument, let's just say that their version of history is true. It's still just a story. We can still take that and do whatever we want with it in this present moment, and we can tell and speak and write a different story.
A different story.
Another story that we want to participate in.
That's all I've ever said. That's all I've ever said. It's like, how in the world, and as someone who's dated outside of his race, and as someone who has grew up in an area where we get to intermingle with others more than just our own a lot, I've always said to myself, well, people that might have jokes about like, different things, whatever the case may be, especially in my community, I've always been like, this is exactly what's holding us back right here. Like, what do we talk? Like, it is about human experience. Simple as that. I don't care about what you think, what you thought, even what you went through. And I've said this before too, G, as I've always talked about with my dad. And I'm gonna reel you back in. I'm not trying to get off topic here, but I've always asked my dad, as someone that I respect a lot and someone that has seen so many different eras. I mean, my God, it's 2023 now. The man was born in 1937. He's seen so much. I've always been like, well, I mean, how much have you actually truly experienced versus what you've been told about so many topics and so many things, All
right, but that actually kind of opens up another discussion to where it's like, I do have compassion for some of the people that are locked into older stories, because to tie this conversation into something we were talking about earlier is like the things that we consume, the drugs that we take, the food that we eat here in America, processed food, the processed diets that we are intaking, the polluted air that we breathe in, the polluted water that we drink, the fluorinated water that we drink in some cases, in more cases than polluted water, I think, in here in America, which is still one form of pollution, but I'm getting a little off topic here. all of these factors contribute to a more calcified worldview. You see what I'm getting at?
Oh, I know what you're getting at.
The longer that life goes on and that you continue to experience certain things, the more skeptical you're going to be when those things seemingly change. Because to you, it's like, okay, well, I could just be getting tricked again. See what I'm getting at?
Yeah, of course. I think there are other things that
I
add
think all
to
people
belief.
get more stubborn as they get older, no matter who you are.
What side of it you're on, of course. Yeah. Yeah. I can understand that too. I can understand that. I can understand that.
All we can do is learn from it, James. I mean, we can speak our piece, and we can try to get them to see it the way we see it. But at the end of the day, it's their agreements, it's their choices, and that's where
That's true.
at least for me, and you take it how you will, or take it or leave it. But I've just had to just let go of the frustration that comes with not being heard.
Mm-hmm.
Because that frustration just validates their skepticism. The skeptic voice in their mind is saying, oh, he's getting frustrated because he's not right. He's trying to prove a lie to me, But if you're comfortable in, okay, well, they don't have to believe me. I know I'm right. You know what I mean? Like, it's not even about being right. It's just about I'm happier living, enacting the story the way
In your truth.
the way
in
that
your
I'm
truth.
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll do everything I can to, and this kind of ties back to something I've talked about with Ben Stewart and with you and other people when it comes to ego, is like, I think very highly of myself. And I think it's a big difference between thinking highly of yourself and wanting others to think that highly of themselves. Thinking highly of yourself in comparison to others. I don't think highly of myself in comparison to others. I think highly of myself, and my desire is to pull everyone up and I want everybody to feel this good about themselves because we're alive. We're fucking breathing. That's enough for me. And it should be enough, in my opinion, for everybody. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. No, I mean, you're right. You're absolutely right by that. You're right. I mean, it's about
another thing too, though, James, is like when you let go of the not even desire, but of the need to be right. When you let go of the need to be right and you begin to focus and value more being happy, people see you as right. More other people think you're right more often just because you're happy. It's like being frustrated, and even if you're into conspiracy, you don't have to be frustrated by it all the time. You can see it for what it is and see it as a teacher. You can always kind of, like I said, change your reaction, but also change your perception. Change the way that you look at the external things that are happening outside of you or to you from outside of you. But yeah, I guess my point of all that is just like, I'm really focused on aligning with love, and I think love is the real name for God, and what that is to me is reality. And I think we all have the ability to tap into that, if that's one way to word it, but align with that. And one way to do that, to me, the way I see it, is to respect each other's worldviews and beliefs, but also, I think even more importantly, to actually open up the conversation so that other people can speak how they conceive of God or reality. I mean, even if you don't believe in God, do you believe in reality? Do you believe in your own existence? Because
exactly, because something, yeah, exactly. It's bigger than just saying it ain't nothing. You know what I'm saying? It's way bigger than that, you know?
Right.
Definitely.
Yeah, B say you
No, I
just
know
went
what you
through
mean.
mites that gathered and made life. Don't even think twice. Ain't nothing about you special. You basically you basically sand mites or some shit like that. Like,
Man,
it's like
project.
yeah, he's just making a point. Like there is a purpose to human consciousness, human existence, purpose.
Yeah,
Whatever that is,
yeah, absolutely. And it,
we have
and
value.
and and
Your
and
life
that's
has
and that's and
value.
that's God. That's God to me. Is those things, you know, listen to Bob's Elements is God. You know, it's like you know what I'm saying. Like there is something that allowed him to write something like that. That's coming from something. When Big Sean tells you that he can tap into something where he's conjuring up there. And I know the religious people get weirded out when we talk about conjuring and stuff. It's not always bad to be able to be so tapped into something that you can pull positive from it. And literally words are falling into this man's head and he's just rapping it out or reading it or writing it out, whatever the
I
case
mean,
is.
what you're talking
That's
about right now reminds me of the South Park Imaginationland. You know, it's like
yeah.
the terrorists are gonna bomb our imagination. It's like that's so real though. Like South Park is painting such a real picture. It's like they
Always,
don't even
bro.
want you to imagine. Like you said the word conjure, but to me it's like conjure is what's how much is that different than imagine? You know, he's imagining, but then he's making I guess the difference between conjuring and imagining is only half of conjuring, right? Conjuring is imagining, but then taking that which you've imagined and bringing it into the real world and bringing it into enacting it. So conjuring, I guess, is a step further than imagining, but it made me think of imagining, right? It's like these people want to doubt the ability to conjure, but I mean, imagination. I mean, do you doubt your own ability to imagine things? You've never daydreamed in your life. You've never thought about a situation that you weren't literally in at the moment. I mean, come on.
Right. Right. Absolutely. I mean, and that all of those sort of layers is like is God to me. It's plugged into something that is beyond, or it's beyond, and it's everything that is it's all of this. It's this journey, it's this process, it's what we are feeling, it's what we're talking to in our private moments. It's the energy that we feel amongst other people. It's just all of that to me. And I know that
It's hip
people
hop.
want it to be such a simple construct of like a entity or just this thing or just this,
I think it's one reason that you and I are both such big hip hop fans because I feel like the word is like humans. It's like our direct connection to the divine, right? Like it's our ability to share stories and our imagination and to be able to literally like create worlds in our mind and then pass that world to somebody else, you know. And hip hop really does that in just the most artistic, beautiful way when you combine music and cadence, flow, lyricism. And so when you talk about some of these topics, a lot of times my mind is just like racing with different rap lyrics that I love. And one of the things you were just saying just then reminded me of that soul verse on that Lupe song. He's like, and as a matter of fact, if matter is fact, a matter factory is in the making, perhaps. It's like everything that matters began in our imagination.
Mm-hmm.
Even matter.
Mm-hmm.
You see?
I do see. That's
exactly what you were talking about.
Yeah. God, I mean, it's it's a but that's what I'm saying. It's like the ability to even do that, man. Seriously. It's a art, it's a craft, it's something that is put in you by something.
And the best ones seem to be tapped into it.
Huh?
The best rappers, hip hop artists, the best ones seem to be tapped into that.
And they all tell you that. They all say, when I got to a point in which I can like almost meditate and these things just come to me, and that is God. That is it. It's it's because it's so beautiful, it's so mysterious, it's so complex at the same time. Where are all these layers of metaphors and entendres and I get it. You can sit down and pick apart something and mess around with it for a week straight and come up with something and be like, okay, yeah, but still, it was something that started as almost nothing, a clean slate, and the same thing could be said with painters and other people too, I'm sure. My point is that I'm going to obviously comment on something that really hits close home to me, that, those things remind me of and bring me close to those sort of layers that I feel we can peel back even farther and get closer to certain spaces and entities and whatever else. It's so complex and it's so big and it's such a study that I don't have all the answers to it, but it's obviously it's so masterful, it's so complex, it's so convoluted, but at the same token, like you said, it can be so simple.
It's magic because there are. I mean, I definitely am guilty of making these certain like grand metaphysical things sound simple. However, I always like to, I think it is natural and best, at least in my opinion, to try to simplify everything. But I do see what you're saying with like, there's what people call angels and demons and gods and a lot of people think of these things as like other dimensional or whatever, but I think a lot of them are here, this world. So, me and Kenny were talking about this yesterday. He was like, God's like to be worshipped. It's like, to me, if you're living in love, that's the ultimate worship of existence itself. The reality itself is just enjoying and being grateful for life. For your own life and your own experience. And sometimes it's hard because your experience might have been really fucking shitty, But at any point you can turn that around with the proper mindset and the proper gratitude for breathing and for the present moment, regardless of how shitty the past is,
Yeah. But I can tell that's your main
perception on that it doesn't necessarily change what happened, but changing how you see what happened can make it, at the very least, make the present and the future better. Because if you're making the present better, the present is what builds the future. So as long as you're taking whatever's happened in the past and making it better right now, whether that's just by having gratitude for life or telling a story that you prefer to live in, because the story that you tell yourself is also the story that you're going to enact. The story that you believe about life and about yourself and about your purpose in life and your purpose in this reality. The way that you believe all of those things, the output is the way that you actually act and the way that you actually operate in the world. The input is what you believe and how you agree to see yourself and to see reality. And so I guess my point in saying that is just like gratitude. It is simple, but at the same time, I acknowledge what you're trying to say in that it can be complicated because it's like it's definitely easier for some people to see the gratitude and to see the light side than for others, because of different experiences, different situations,
different experience, right?
So I mean, just all comes back to the yin yang, man. I feel like that symbol, as far as we have to, if we have to use symbols to try to like send a message or like, transmit a conception of reality. To me, I think the yin yang is both the most simple and complex. And because of that, most accurate symbol to represent what reality really is summed up in one symbol,
Symbolism, which is probably why it's so known and so understood. But what I was going to say was that I know the chapter of your story at this point, though, G, is love. It clear, and it has been for a while. It has been, but like it's always every time we talk, it's a reminder to me that your mission statement, if you had one, would be love. At this would be love.
And really I think it has to be unconditional. If you place a condition on love, I don't feel like it's really love anymore. Like by definition, it's not love if it's not unconditional. And you have to have that. In order to have unconditional love for yourself, you also have to have that for those who stand against you and disagree with you. And which is why I always emphasize listening to other people, because if I want to be heard, then I got to listen to other people. The energy that you put out is what gets reciprocated. So if I'm not feeling heard, then I feel like that's a reflection of I'm not listening to somebody or to something that I need to be listening to,
Good point. That's a good point. Very good point. Very solid point. And I think a good lesson. I think the other thing too is, you're a father. You're a father. Not that I can say that about a lot of my friends, but you're a father. So I mean, you also have that unique piece there as well that I think really can, from what I hear, I don't have from personal experience, but from what I hear, can really change a man, can really help a man evolve. And as someone who's already on the path of Toltec wisdom and really, looking at things from a different lens, and it sort of all makes sense to another part of your story, though, G. I will say that, and it always sort of reminds me too, of where I can be better at too, as far as just my own personal growth and sort of
But I have to say this too, man. That's why I appreciate you so much, is because you're somebody that I feel like I can be myself 100% around. I don't have to be my version of me at work. I don't have to, not step on certain people's toes as far as I can say anything. I don't feel like I have to restrain or restrict myself in any way when I'm having a conversation with you. And, I appreciate that you would say something like, how I help you to be a better person, because I feel the same way about you. It's like iron sharpens iron, and that's like part of what the balancing act is like, you gotta have people that'll keep you in check. You gotta have people that'll tell you you're too high, you're too far, you've gone too far. Let's come back to earth a little bit, And you also have to have the humility to listen to that person that's telling you.
Yeah, that's true too.
I know some people in my life that I want to tell, come back to earth a little bit. And I almost feel like, maybe I should, because I shouldn't make the assumption that they're going to take it personally. Right. But at the same time, you have to read the vibe a little bit.
Yeah, read the room. Yeah.
And I really do feel like they would almost take it personally, or take it offense if I was to say something along those lines of come back to earth a little bit,
Right.
So keep my mouth shut for now. But I think we could all use a little bit more humility, and I think the way to express that is just to listen to other people more. And I'm speaking to myself when I say that. Like I just said, if I feel unheard, I feel like that's a reflection of I'm not hearing somebody else that I should be hearing. So
Right.
It is what it is. But this was a dope discussion, and I do
Absolutely.
wrap it up, but I wanted to make it not not an
abrupt shut off ending. Yeah, we have those things happen sometime with our platform, but we definitely try to always bring it home. Try to always bring it home after a needed therapy session, as we like to call it. And I always hope that, you know, it's not about seeking people for us to be heard, but for the people who do listen, because it's not like you don't show me things where I still see that somebody's listening. I just always hope that there's something that positive that comes out of it, you know, always, because that's what it's about. So no different here, you know, and it's always good talking with you, catching up with you, and chopping it up. And I'm so glad that we get to chew on another Ab-Soul album for the first time in 6 years. It's been so long. And as someone like me who loves so many different artists and music and blase, it always comes back to those sort of artists and those sort of projects with those sort of messages and appreciation of the art and the metaphors and double entendres and the storytelling and just so much in the beat making. I mean, God, that Ab did a song with.
It's a complete. It's a complete album. In every sense,
sometimes great things are worth the wait. You know, artists like that shouldn't be making albums every year or two. You know, it takes time. It takes going away and having life experience.
The first project that I, and really his first known project. I mean, but his whole mentality is long-term mentality. I mean, the first two projects before I caught on to him was called Long Term and Long Term 2.
Yeah.
Long-term mentality is the one that I caught. And then it's only right. It's only right that he would have a 6-year gap between albums right when he was hitting the height of his popularity. And the fact that this album didn't hit the Billboard 200 or whatever, fuck all that bullshit. This is the greatest album out right now, and it's probably going to be the greatest album of the decade. I'm just going to say that right now. If you want validation on what I just said, which I don't need validation on what I'm saying, because I feel it and I don't care if people agree with that statement or not. It's a matter of opinion anyway. I'm not saying
subjective. Exactly.
Opinion anyway. But other elite rappers who never ever even talk about other rappers will tell you Soul is that dude. Soul is that dude, period.
Absolutely. Exactly. Oh man, how many names does this dude have for himself, man? It's beautiful, and they're all dope too. That's what's so funny about him. None of them are corny. I call him every single one of his names at a different time, depending on how I'm talking about him. It's so hilarious. But I just was saying that to say it. So it was great to end the year that way and come into 23 with a project like that to chew on, and you know some of what we're probably going to be getting psyoped with this year. It's going to be good to have certain projects to always lean back on.
I hope it's not 6 years for the next one. As much as I love Ab, and as much as
it won't be.
I hope it's not 6 years again.
It won't be. Usually, you got to remember. Usually, in situations like that, I mean, he's probably sitting on a couple albums anyway. You know, and don't even get me started on the JSMN album that never saw the light of day. It probably will never see the light of day. But
and honestly, like, yeah, I mean, you just brought up something that for me hits home, because my favorite, Ab-Soul is one of my favorite rappers anyway. Probably my favorite rapper in the pure sense of rapping. Like the other music artists that I love, they're more artists. Like they can do other music. They have their own rapping style. In Tech Nine's case, But with soul, it's like he's just a rapper, but
Just
he's
a rapper.
at that. He's like a rapper's rapper,
Just
and
a rapper's rapper.
that's that's just what it is. But
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. It's been real, G.
yeah, man, this was a good one. This was a good one. I'm gonna cut it up on iMovie and see how quickly I can get it out on YouTube.
Yeah, I know you will, man. I'm looking forward to looking back at it and just continuing to create these dialogues that are healthy and a breath of fresh air for some, I hope, and different.
My
different.
thought did get broken real quick. I wanted to say, out of my favorite music artists, he's my favorite rapper, whatever. But my favorite songs that by Ab Soul are JMSN produced. Okay, when you talk about Nibiru, when you talk about we
Damn, and Nibiru
WROH,
didn't even make a project, G.
they did a whole project together and management can't get it out. I mean, that's some fucking bullshit, dude.
Well, you know, but you know what it is. You know what
industry bullshit.
Yeah. So, I mean, you know, that's the stuff I'm talking about when I get back to things sometimes where I just get, I mean, when you know what you know about certain things, sometimes it's hard though to just, oh, well, and then you got to sit around with other people and got to hear them talk about, well, that's always been challenging for me is when, you gotta just hear somebody be wrong about something, but whatever. I guess they could feel the same way about something I'm saying. So whatever.
They're adamant about being wrong. You just got to let them be wrong. If they're if they're open to listening to what you got to say, then say what you want to say.
Then you're right, exactly. And then that energy, then I wouldn't be feeling that way about him anyway. You're right. So, and it works both ways. You're absolutely right. But anyway, I was just saying that it's unfortunate that we won't get to hear so many things, like half of the albums that somehow are free and up on YouTube from Kanye, but they never made the light of day, and they're so great, and they're just there on YouTube. There, I mean, classic albums are there that have never been heard, and it's just like, how does the industry even work? I don't understand how I like that was made and I didn't figure out a way as a label to package that together and get it out to the masses. But then I remember there's a reason why these things happen the way that they happen. And the term masters, when albums get mastered, they actually go through a particular process that makes it a certain vibration that gets into people. There's a whole process. I'm not getting into it all. We could do a whole pod on that. My point is that that's what I'm still getting good at doing. And every time I talk with you, it's a reminder of, hey, let's listen. Let's have dialogue. Let's chat. Don't get so worked up. Don't get so immersed. Just, so anyway, I appreciate you, brother, as always. And this has always been real.
Hell yeah. I appreciate this conversation. It was a good one. I look forward to going back and editing it. That's always a fun process, is reflecting on what you just created, what I just created. And this one particularly, like, I wasn't fully committed to even making it a pod. I was just wanted to catch up with you a little bit, but I did know, because of our way our conversations go, that possibility. So I figured, let's go ahead and record it. And I think I'm gonna definitely chop it up and at least put pretty much most of it out.
I tell you all the time, some of our best combos have been just phone combos. And sometimes I almost low key, I'm like, gee, you kind of have permission sometimes. If we're going, just don't even tell me, because it's when you're recording and you're,
but this is sometimes it becomes that I have that we can do it on, because there's no way after all of the like apps where you can record
Yeah,
a conversation.
yeah, it kind of has to be presented as such. Yeah, I know.
Zoom is better than they are, so.
Yeah, no, I understand that. It's just it really is funny sometimes how when it's just a regular old phone combo is when it's like it's the best, like really the best. I can't explain it.
No, I know.
All of these are always good, but
even though we were recording it, I think there was something about at the beginning we set the intention of just making it like a phone conversation. Instead of making it a podcast, like let's just have a phone conversation, then it'll be like a podcast. And I think it kind of worked out perfect.
I got some ideas for some things we can do too. I know we talked about that. We'll talk about that off air, but I
think this God centering every conversation, especially with new people, around God. And then even next time me and you get on, we can pick it right back up from, we went from God and we kind of finished with like the music industry, but there's connections there. I mean,
of course it is.
Frequencies of vibrations passing through matter. That's a divine phenomena, and that's what reality is literally quite literally made of, is matter and vibration. So music is really fundamental and foundational to the reality that we experience. So like I said, so the whole point of me saying that is just, I think to center all of these podcasts around God, not necessarily in the super religious, like I understand why a lot of people are turned off by the term God, because it's a corrupted word. I mean, even Don Miguel uses the word a lot, but he's older. And if you read the Fifth Agreement, I don't think you've read that one yet, but if you read that, Don Jose says, he resists using the word God. He'd just rather use the word love, because the word vibrates more with what we're actually trying to get at.
Mm-hmm.
When people like Don Miguel, like his dad, say the word God, what he's really getting at is love, is the true reality that we have been created by and are living in.
Mm-hmm.
And are
I agree.
So
I agree.
This was awesome, man. I am gonna actually stop recording now, but this was dope.
Peace, brother. Talk soon.
Peace.
Do you believe in repenting? What if the kingdom of heaven's within you? Do you think you would enter, huh? What do you know, huh? How do you know truth from the pit of your soul, or just cause somebody told you? Do you think about what you think about? Do you see yourself in the people that you hang around? Keep quiet, let me think aloud. Listen up, wanna break it down and question your perceptions. I'ma break it down and question your perceptions. Do you ever question your perceptions? Do you ever question it all? Yeah. What if your money was worthless? Then would you know what your worth is and reconsider living with a purpose? How would you determine what work is? Are you seeking what's easy to purchase, or is it deeper than what's on the surface? Do you question your perceptions ever so is real, huh? It ain't your politicians, nor your status. All of that is fiction, so it's real, huh? It ain't your entertainment, nor the industry. I heard it's filled with fake shit. And I need truth over everything. Yeah. I need truth above all else. Just I need truth over everything. Yeah, give me the truth, give me the truth, give me the truth, yeah.